So we'll jump right into this. Using hard money. The same way that conventional loans or FHA loans, they might say, hey, listen, in order to go after this loan, you need to put this amount of money down. You need to, here's where your interest is going to be. Any type of mortgage application fees, things like that, recording fees, all those. You'll find the same way with a hard money lender. And we'll talk about the terms of the hard money lender, and then we'll give a hypothetical scenario in which, we're putting those funds to work. So right off the bat, some of the key characteristics, we'll set it up like this. If I'm a hard money lender, which ironically, I will be a hard money lender, hopefully by the end of this week, if not very, very soon, I have to complete the onboarding process, and I will be the individual who you can come to if you need funding for your deal, if you need money for your deal. So I'll actually give you a hypothetical scenario about how my fund, my particular company, is going to be lending on particular deals, and then I'll bring us through a hypothetical situation. So right off the bat, hard money, the total amount that we would give you on any particular deal is going to be 70% of the LTV, the loan to value, or 70% of the ARV, after repair value. LTV, ARV, same thing. We're just going to give the max amount that we're going to give you is 70% of the after repair value, the renovated value. When it's all fixed up, nice, this is what's going to cost. So we'll work with a $300,000 property to make it easier for today. So I'll say, the 70% of the LTV is a term, right? So some of the key terms, 70% LTV, which is loan to value, or 70% of the ARV. So basically, we're not going to give you more. If the property is worth $300,000, when it's all fixed up, we're not going to give you more than $210,000 for your purchase price and the repairs. So all in, your purchase price and your renovation money cannot exceed $210,000. All right, and we'll talk about that later. If it does, then obviously you're going to have to come out of pocket the difference. But if you want to stay in that parameter of you getting funded majority of the money that you need, you'll want to stay within that 70% LTV. Points, I'll say 2 to 3 points, which are loan origination fees, which you pay at closing, and 2 to 3 points, it's either 2 or 3 points, which are points that are origination fees that get charged at closing in the amount of 2% or 3%. So a point equals a percentage, either 2% or 3% of the total loan amount that you're going to be asking for. All right. We'll bring that down in a hypothetical scenario. For this one, we'll say 10% interest. 10% interest. And we'll do 85% of the purchase price. 85% of the purchase price, and 100% will fund 100% of the rehab money, the construction money, renovation money. All the lenders are going to fund 100% of the rehab. If you ever find a lender that's not willing to fund 100% of the rehab, then leave that lender. That's not how we do that. You should always get the rehab portion funded. That should never be an issue for you. It's always going to be the purchase price, because this is going to allow you to know, this is going to allow you to know how much you need to put down for a down payment. So the 85% of the purchase price, if they're funding that, if we're funding that, then that means you need to bring 15% down to the table. So this is all that you need to know to be able to calculate how much money you're going to need, how much is it going to cost to fund the deal, how much is my ROI, how much am I, and we'll go over both scenarios, whether we're flipping or whether we're turning it into a rental. Whether that's a single family, multifamily, you can always, if you're rehabbing a project, you have two exit strategies. You can either flip it or you can refinance out of the hard money loan. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So these are essentially for the loan, because there's the loan portion and then there's holding costs. And I'll break it down to you down here. But this is what essentially you need in order to be able to calculate, okay, what am I going to be looking at as far as what I need to fund this particular deal. All right, so under these terms right here, we'll go into a hypothetical scenario. The ARV after repair value, when the house is fixed up to the best of its ability, I won't say to the best of its ability, when the house is fixed up based off of the repairs that you made, if you made high stellar repairs, the higher the ARV, at least compared to the comparable sales that are in the area. If all the homes in the area, when they're renovated with the granite countertops, the stainless steel appliances, new bathrooms, like completely updated bathrooms with the better tile, not the basic stuff, if all of that is worth $300,000, and if all the homes are in the area that are selling for $300,000, then obviously if you were to do the same thing, your home should appraise for $300,000 after repair value. If all the homes in the area have the basic Minka, the Flint Minka countertops, they have the white and black fridge, not stainless steel. If they have regular, lighting, not recessed lighting, and if all the homes like that are selling for $275, if you do the same repairs, then obviously your property is probably going to be worth the $275. But for all intents and purposes, let's say we're using the granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, ARV is at $300,000. All right, ARV is at $300,000. So now we start to work backwards from there. Right, so if we know the ARV is $300,000, now we got to analyze whoever is selling the property. Okay, we got to find out, what are they looking to sell it for? What's the purchase price? All right, and at that point, we also have to figure out our repairs, whether that's bringing our contractor there, or some wholesalers, some agents, some other investors might bring a deal to you, and they might say, hey, listen, purchase price is $100,000 and it needs $50,000 in Reno. 5 times out of 10 are they spot on with their Reno. Meaning you want to do your own due diligence. Don't take whoever's bringing the deal to you, that's going to be the renovation estimate. You want to do your due diligence. Bring your contractor out. Find out the exact quote. If somebody brings a property to me and they're like, the purchase price is $100,000, $50,000 in repairs, I'm always adding another $15,000 to that budget before I even go out, because I'm running my numbers to see if it's even worth me going out to view it and worth me bringing my contractor out. Because as you can imagine, contractors are getting brought out all the time to give quotes, but they're not getting any jobs out of it. So obviously, if you built a solid relationship with that contractor, you want to make sure that he's coming out for a project that has a good chance of starting up. So let's use those same numbers, $100,000 purchase price, and then a $50,000 rehab budget. Let's assume that we did our due diligence, we brought our contractor through, and he's like, you know what, this is definitely going to be worth, or this will definitely be $50,000. And the purchase price is $150,000, $50,000. So obviously our all-in is $150,000. So when we're looking at our all-in on what it's going to cost, our all-in is on $150,000. The $300,000 is the ARV. Keep in mind, most companies will only lend up to 70% of the ARV. Are we in the clear? Which obviously with math, we'll see that we're at 50%. but 70% of the LTV, 300,000 is 210. We're all in at 150,000. Obviously, we're clear to go. The points, right? So let's do it like this. So that's all we need, essentially, to get into the transaction. Now, closing and holding costs after are two different things. But to get into the transaction, we want to know what's the purchase price, what's the rehab numbers looking like, what can it sell for after, or if we refinance out of that, how much are we going to be getting back? So we'll do a flip first. We'll do a hypothetical flip first. So what you'll need to keep in mind is your holding costs. And your holding costs are going to be a compilation of your taxes. Like, this is after you've closed. So in between, as you tell the investor, you know what, $100,000 is a good number. I want it. Okay. 2 weeks later, you come to the closing table. You obviously going to have to do your appraisal beforehand, but coming to your appraisal is only about $600 or so. The lending company is going to want to do an appraisal. So if you come to me and say, Austin, I need $100,000, I need $50,000 for Reno, what can you do? I'm going to send my appraisal out just to make sure that you telling me that it's worth $300,000 and actually true. It comes back $300,000. Cool, we're good to go. With this particular program, we're going to do 85% of the purchase price, 100% of the rehab. So you know that you have to bring 15% down to closing, because that's going to be your down payment. 15%, you're all in of the 150. I'm sorry, you're only going to be doing this for the purchase price. 15% of the 100,000, which is obviously 15,000. I don't even know why I'm using a calculator. 15,000, right? So your down payment is going to equal 15,000. And this is all going to be, cash out of your pocket. Like, once you close, here's what you're going to be responsible for. So you have a down payment that's $15,000, right? So down payment, 85% of the purchase price. That's what we're giving you. 15% down is coming out of your pocket. $15,000 on the $100,000 purchase price, $15K. You have 2 to 3 points. It's between 2 or 3 points. Let's say for this particular transaction, it's 2 points. So 2 points on the total loan. So the $100,000 for the purchase price, $50,000 for the Reno. 2 points on that is equal to $3,000. So your points and you're like, why am I getting charged all these fees and all these points and all this other stuff? Because it's the cost of doing business. The way that I see it, you didn't have the cash to be able to complete the deal yourself, so you had to come to a hard money lender, and obviously it's the cost of doing business with the high interest, the points, things like that, and you just have to factor it into your numbers. If the numbers work, so be it. If you're able to profit, which I'll show you in a little bit, if you're able to profit $60K, $70K on a flip, and you're only coming out of pocket, say, $20,000, then that works. So down payment $15,000, your points equal to $3,000. Let's see. As far as your interest, I calculate as part of your holding cost. Some people do it up front. I calculate as part of your holding cost, because your interest, you're going to be paying that monthly. Instead of a monthly mortgage payment, you're just doing interest-only payments. So it winds up actually being a little bit cheaper than going after a conventional or FHA loan, especially during the process of you closing and then the renovation time period in between before you actually get a chance to sell the property. So points is at $3,000. When you're closing, you're going to want to use an attorney. Let's say the attorney is $1,500. $1,500. I'll label this at closing. So that way you'll know what money that you need at the closing table. And then we'll talk about, and I'll put it over here, holding costs. These are the costs incurred as you're renovating the actual home. Holding costs. Right? So, at closing, holding costs. So your attorney, let's see, what else? For simplistic purposes, we'll leave it at that. There might be a miscellaneous application fee of $100 or whatever the case, or your appraisal might be. We'll throw the appraisal in here, and let's say the appraisal is $600. That's probably the next big expense. Anything else? Let's keep it like that for right now, right? So at closing, the $15,000, the $3,000 in points, the $1,500 for the attorney, the appraisal is $600. I mean, you pay that before closing, but any type of prepaid taxes. So we'll add another. So let's do taxes, insurance, and any other miscellaneous fees. We'll put that at taxes, insurance. We'll put that at $4,000. All right. So coming to the table. You have your $15K plus your 3 plus your 4. This calculator is getting on my nerves. Okay. 15,000 plus the 1,500 plus the 600 plus the 4,000. All right, 24,000. $100. This is what you will need to bring to the closing table. So you're already into the property, liquid cash, $24,100. All right. So that is starting the project. Then, as far as your holding costs, so this is after you close, then you're going to have your holding costs, which are part of, so your holding costs will be your interest-only payments, the taxes that you're paying on the house, the utilities to keep the house on, the insurance that you're paying monthly, things like that, things that are things that are part of the costs or expenses incurred as you're making the renovation. So, holding costs, 10% interest. So 10% interest on the entire loan. The loan is for $150,000. $150,000. 15% interest. This is what I get for using the old calculator. Okay, so 15%, or say 10%. Oops, I did 150. All right, so that's 10.5, right? I can't believe I'm like off on math right now. So $1,500 a month, essentially. So you're taking, so how you calculate your interest for the total year, you take the total amount of the loan, $150,000, times the 10% interest, which is $15,000, and then you divide that by 12 to get your monthly payment of $1,250. So you know that however long the project takes, that's how much money that you're going to be spending as far as interest-only payments. So say, for example, your contractor gives you an estimate of 3 months. We're going to take 3 months to do this. 3 months. So everything that you do, obviously you're going to times it by 3 months. So in this case, $1,250 times 3 is $3,750. All right, so $3,750 for the interest-only payments. You're going to do, let's say your taxes are $5,000 a year. Your taxes are $5,000 a year. And on a monthly basis, you're paying $416 per month for the taxes. So in this case, with the 3 months, you're in for 1,200, and we'll say 50. All right, so this is interest, taxes. Your homeowner's insurance for the year is $1,200. So that every month is $100 for the 3 months, $300. $300 for the insurance. And let's say for the utilities, you're paying $100 a month for the water, the gas, the electricity. The workers got to work in the light and in the heat. So we'll say another $300 for the utilities over the course of 3 months. All right, so $300 in utilities. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything else. We got our insurance, we got our taxes, we got our insurance, we got our utilities. Yep, that is pretty much it, right? So holding costs. So during the rehab portion, these are going to be the costs that you will be incurring as you take on your project. So $3,750 plus the $1,250 plus the $300. Or I should say 600. So $5,600. So $5,600 plus the 24,1. What is that? 29,7. So you need to raise 30K. You need to raise 30,000 in order to participate in this particular deal. All right, just using these numbers that we have here. So whether you have the money or not, you at least know what your end result is, right? You know what your end result is. You know what you're all into the property for, right? You're all in at $150 plus whatever holding costs that you have associated with it, right? Because your down payment is coming out of the 150. Percentage-wise, the 15,000 on the 100,000, that's coming out of the down payment. So the total loan will only be 135,000, but you're into the property 150,000 because of that $15,000 down payment. So the 150 plus your holding costs, because you got to make that back. Your holding costs that you have accrued, 5,600, right? So you're all in the property. 155, 6, right? So the total that you're all in, we'll say all in, $155,600. All right? This is the amount of cash that's coming out of your pocket or the amount that you're raising. But this is what you want to know, like, what am I in all in? Because when I'm doing the flip, based off of how much profit that is, that's going to let me know, like, where my profit stands. How much I'm all in versus how much I sell for. All right, so I'm going to wipe this down so that way we could talk about the profit. We're going to remember these numbers, the 29,700 and the 155.6 that were all in for the property. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so we're going to keep our number to 29.7, which is our cash all in, so we can calculate our ROI, because that's what we need in order to fund the entire investment. Okay, if we're putting out $30,000 of our own cash, how much are we getting back? Not profit, but how much money is going to be our ROI, right? So we're all in $155,600. Now we're going to sell the property for $300,000. That was the ARV. Right? So when selling a home, there's two main fees that you have to worry about. There is the realty transfer tax, which in New Jersey, for this property, $300,000, we're probably only looking at about $2,500 or so. I mean, not much. And then broker fees. So like if you were to hire an agent to help you sell the property, let's say it's 2.5%. 2.5% of that $300,000. Matter of fact, we'll give an easy number, 3%, so that way that'll be $9,000. All right, so for broker fees, if you choose to list with an agent, broker fees, here we'll put selling price of $300,000 here. $300,000 sell price. You have your broker fee, which equals $9,000, which is 3%. Fee of the $300,000, and the title transfer fee, which equals $2,500. Now there might be prorated taxes, extra little miscellaneous fees. For simple purposes, we'll just focus on this number because it can vary from transaction to transaction, and it'll just depend on what day you close on, things like that, right? So as far as expenses, our broker's fee plus the title transfer fee, that is $11,500. So with, these are cost of, it's like cost of doing business. So cost to sell your home, essentially, right? So we're looking at $11,500. Right? So this is the gross. When you sell that property, $288,500 is the gross. That is your gross profit. You have your sell price of $300,000. Then you have your cost of sales, right? What does it cost in order for you to actually realize this $300,000? Those are the fees that are associated with it. So you have $288,500 as your gross minus your $155,600, which gives you the net. So we'll put minus $155,600. Total owed, which gives you $132,900 as your net profit. All right. So right off the bat, you put up $30,000, right, and got back $132,000. Now, that is an awesome deal. Obviously, for the most part, your numbers will be a lot more tighter than that. Simply because with 150 all-in number and a $300,000 ARV, I mean, that is, you're in 50%. Like, that's buying a market. I mean, that's buying a house half off, which is an excellent investment. So that's in this particular case. That's a real basic example. So that way you'll just get an idea of how to play with the numbers. But for, in this case, if you see that number, then you know that the property is worth investigating a little bit more. These are just hard numbers. They're not crazy in depth. It's just to give you a running start for you to be able to analyze really quickly. Is this deal worth pursuing? Is it worth me going after? Is it worth me checking it out, bringing my contractor out, things like that? So that is on the flip side. So that would be your profit if you were on the flip side. And this is your cash in, $30,000. But that's how you're able to identify, okay, like if I don't have the money, how much money do I need? And you'll be able to calculate it that way. And then we'll talk about we'll do it up here. We'll talk about what happens when you choose to turn that property into a rehab. Not a rehab, if you refinance out of that particular property. So say if you had a multifamily and you were looking at it like, well, if I sell this, I get $132,900. Not bad. But what if my long-term game, like what if I love the passive income? Like what if I love the cash flow? At that point, I might want to hold on to it. Like I might want to keep it. But with a hard money loan, they are short-term lending. So the loan period might only be for a year or 6 months. The most that I've seen has been 2 years. For the bigger projects, for 50, 80, 90, 100 units, things like that, or big commercial buildings that they're renovating, it might be a little bit longer, depending on the construction time. But for single residential 1 to 4 units, it's usually about a year or 6 months or so. So what happens if you want to hold on to the property? What happens if you want to keep the property, if you want to turn it into a rental and then start generating cash flow? You can do what's known as a cash out refi, which what is happening is the banks, because that's how they that's how they make their money, they need assets to lend on, right? Because if you take out a loan from the bank, then they're going to be making that loan back plus interest. That's how they make their money. So the bank's looking for property to lend on. They're looking for property to lend on at a certain amount. They only want to lend on the property if you're refinancing into a commercial or conventional loan. You're most likely going to refi at 75% of the LTV, loan to value, ARV. I would say ARV. So whatever the property is worth, they'll give you $75% of that in order to be able to lend on their property, to be able to lend on your home and be able to start collecting that monthly mortgage. If you happen to refinance into an FHA loan, you can go up to 85% of the ARV. So here's how I'm about to break it down. You're all into the property, the $155,600. All right? That's your all in. The bank, when you go and you're like, hey, listen, I have this property, I have a good amount of equity, because think about it. At $155,600, even though that's what you owe, the property is still worth the original $300,000 that we've been working with. So you have about $145,000 worth of equity, which is the difference between what you owe and how much the property is worth. That's your equity position. That's how much equity you have in the property. Well, in the hard money lender's case, That's how much equity they have in the property. But that's the point of you refinancing out to capitalize on that equity. So what happens? The bank sees that you're all in for 155, 600. They see that the property is worth 300,000. They say, you know what? You did a great job. In order for us to lend on your property, we'll give you 75% of the ARV, which in this case is 225,000. Right? So now your new loan, because now you're taking out a mortgage. Now you're converting it into a 30-year, 15-year, whatever, a regular mortgage. You're converting it into a regular mortgage. If you would, like the same way if you would have bought the property when it was already fixed up. It's just that because you decided to use it as an investment and brought in a hard money lender to be the bridge between where the property is now distressed and its after repair value, after repair state, I should say, you're able to refinance out of that hard money loan. Because at the end of the day, the hard money lender said, you only have a year for this, or 6 months, whatever their terms is, and at the end of this period, we want all our money back. Could you imagine if the project went over and then they started knocking on your door like, we need our entire $150,000 back? You know? So the bank said, hey, listen, we'll give you 75% of the ARV. That's $225,000. So now you have a new loan of $225,000. They're literally giving you $225,000. All right? Because that's their loan. They're loaning you the $225,000. But you only owe to the hard money lender the $155,600. So now you've taken out a new loan of the $225,000. So that's your new loan. That's your new loan is $225,000. You cleared the old loan of $155,000. So you actually received a profit of $69,400 while also being able to now stay as the owner of the property by taking out that conventional loan. Does that make sense? If this was FHA, it would be the same thing, only they're giving you 85% of the ARV. So 85% of the $300,000, they're giving you $255,000. They're giving you $255,000. You owe $155,600. Right? You actually walk away with $99,000, almost $100,000, and you're staying in control of the property. Now, like it, these numbers are not typical. If you find an awesome deal, so be it. These numbers are usually not typical. I'm just letting you know how to calculate it, because the moment that you know how to calculate it, all you have to do is just plug in the numbers exactly where they do belong. All right? So these are your two extra strategies. Starting off again, you're all in, $30,000. Cash, like that's what cash you need to fund the transaction. Some of it's going to be for the down payment, and then you need your closing costs after to keep the property going, obviously, after you're renovating it. You're all in $155,600. Property is worth $300,000, all fixed up. You can either flip it for a net profit of $132,900 or refinance out of it, take a lesser profit, and still be able to hold on to the property. These are, like I said, these numbers are not typical. I'm not going to say that they don't happen. These numbers are not typical. So I don't want you to start getting your hopes up or anything like that and start coming to me like, you told me that I can make $155, blah, 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 blah. Go after it. If you score that slam dunk deal, call me for financing. We'll get it funded right away, and we'll make sure that it gets, off to the right foot. And then, we'll make sure that you're able to refinance out of it or be able to sell if you need to. So I'm going to be doing more variations of this. so that way you can really get an idea of how to calculate your numbers. But the final number, right? ROI, return on investment. In this case, you're all in, your cash, let's say you put 30,000, it's 29,700. 30,000, but your net profit is $132,900. $29,700. You've made, literally, you've made almost a 400% return on your money, right? Because you're putting in this and you're getting back that net profit. So 30,000, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. So about 45%. Well, 458%, I should say. So excellent return on investment, excellent return on value. In this case, you would have doubled your money here, taken the 30,000, and then you create 70,000 out of it. That's a little bit over doubling. And in this case, you're almost, tripling your money, almost, quadrupling your money. And in this case, you put in 30, you're getting back 100,000 minus the 3070. So you're about doubling your money as far as net profit is concerned. So I'm going to do a lot. There's a lot of variations that this can go. I wanted to start it off on this one. We'll continue to kind of work through the numbers so that way you understand it. Obviously, if you have any questions or anything like that, just let me know. If you want to find out about the funding programs, the lending opportunities that we have, if you have a deal, bring it to me. Let's go over the numbers. Let's see how we can make it work, and let's see how we can make you profitable. Awesome. Let's do it.